Young black voters are switching. They're switching sides. Maybe that's because they see through Joe Biden. Maybe they don't look at everything just as color. Maybe they're looking at the policy. Maybe they're looking at an old guy who really they can't identify with for whatever reason. But why should they identify with him when he says stupid things like this? And by the way, this is not the first time he's done this. Here he is trying to praise LL Cool J, aka James Todd Smith, an African-American man, super duper famous entertainer in his 50s. Watch.
Two of the great artists of our time representing the groundbreaking legacy of hip-hop in America, LL Cool J. By the way, that man's got biceps bigger than my thighs. I think he's been... And MC Light, both of you, thank you.
Okay, not appropriate. Say what you want about Donald Trump. He doesn't say things like that. Biden's like from a different era, okay? Just totally different era. Doesn't have anything in common with the kids today, so to speak. And don't forget, he is who he is. Back in 1994, he introduced a crime bill and he wanted to expand upon it in 1997. Amazing, right? Because now this guy is like, okay, we're going to no longer make marijuana a Schedule I drug. We're going to change all this stuff around. We don't want to incarcerate. That, by the way, was a big platform of Donald Trump's. But now he's changing his tune because he figures he has to. But people remember. I don't know if the kids remember this, but I'll tell you what we all need to remember and not forget is what he said back in 97.
It's drugs, stupid, it's drugs. It's drugs, stupid, it's drugs. And it is. It is drugs. This statement is unfortunately necessary in the face of rising drug abuse among our children. While drug abuse among adults is holding steady, all the surveys tell us that more and more children are falling prey to drugs. Anecdotal for 1 second, went to one of our leading high schools, public high schools in my state, and one of the leading private high schools. In the midst of the campaign, asked them about what they thought about marijuana, how many thought it was harmless. 85% of the kids raised their hand. First time since the 1974 I've had a debate in a high school with children about whether or not, why isn't it legal? It's the old 1974 argument when I got started in this business. So we have to understand there are 39 million children under the age of 10. If not 1/10 of 1% increase in the percent of those who try drugs occurs, we will still have an 8 or 9% increase in the number of crimes committed as a consequence of drugs because that population is going to balloon. So holding steady is not enough. It will create a crime wave like we haven't seen in the next 10 years. I don't totally disagree with what he's saying. I mean, if we could get the Joe Biden from yesteryear, we might all be a little bit better off. When you listen to him, for example, on the border, when you listen to him on crime, when you listen to him talking about how there is a threat from these Schedule I drugs, which it's no longer going to be, on the top of the schedule anymore because he feels strongly that he needs to appeal to this voting base. I think people see through that. I mean, the difference between him and Donald Trump, and go look at the vintage MAGA stuff that I posted the other day, because it's worth seeing. If you look at him back in the 80s, if you look at him on CNN back in the day with Larry King or on Oprah, he's talking about the exact same stuff he's talking about now. He hasn't changed. He's had a viewpoint and he's been consistent about it. Whereas Joey, it's like whichever way the wind blows. I mean, you have only to look at what's going on with Israel, right? I mean, think about how he's changed his tune with Israel, ladies and gentlemen. But if we go back to 1987, Donald Trump, he was speaking out basically with the whole America First agenda before he called it America First on CNN. And this is what I'm telling you. At least the guy stands for something, unlike Joe, who's all over the mulberry bush. Let's listen. Let's go back to 87. I walked down memory lane. I was in high school.
Ripping off the United States. This is a great country. They laugh at us. Behind our backs, they laugh at us because of our own stupidity and the leaders. I mean, what we have a Persian Gulf situation. You saw what happened today. Billions and billions of dollars are being spent on getting oil for Japan, and they're not paying anything for it. Essentially, they're paying nothing for it. We have tankers going back and forth that our men are protecting, losing their lives. I mean, they're losing their lives, Larry. We're spending billions and billions on protection, and those tankers are going over to Japan. It's just preposterous. I watched the Kuwaiti oil minister the other day laughing as he was explaining how much money they intend to make with the Bridgeton, which has been a total disaster, the Bridgeton. And I said to myself, isn't that a shame? He's talking about how much money they're going to make, and here we are. He's smiling and laughing. Why don't we get some of it? Why is it that we're protecting? We have frogmen, we have helicopters, we have aircraft carriers, and all sorts of ships all over the Persian Gulf, so that this man and his little group can make a lot of money. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, one of the reasons we say we're doing it is because we've been doing it, and that all previous presidents have endorsed doing it. I guess the kind of thinking of an entrepreneur is because somebody else said it was right doesn't make it right, right?
Larry, the country is losing $200 billion a year. $200 billion. This country cannot continue to lose $200 billion. Japan is one of the wealthiest machines ever created. Saudi Arabia, and it's not, hey, let me tell you, I'm a big beneficiary of Japan. They buy my apartments in spades. They're fine people, but they must be, they're laughing to themselves as to what's happening over here. We're not kidding ourselves. They're laughing to themselves, Larry, as to what's happening with this country.
I mean, does that not sound familiar? You compare and contrast Donald Trump from 1987, and you don't even have to go back that far, right? You go back to 1997 with Joe Biden, and he's like a different person. Donald Trump is the same person. He consistently said the exact same things. And I think that people value and respect that. And so when he says, you know what, I want to help the Black community, I think that they deserve more. I think that they deserve a better opportunity and better leaders, etc. I think people actually believe that. And I think that there's a kind of simpatico when they look at how law enforcement is going after them, like every which way to Sunday. They feel that. And that's why you start to see people shifting opinions. A voter down in Georgia actually said exactly this to MSNBC the other day, and she hit the nail on the head. Let's listen to it.
He keeps fighting to do what's right.
I've talked to many people who formerly identified as a Democrat. They have changed their political persuasion to independent, and they are looking forward to voting for Trump. Wow. Because now they find something in common with a political candidate at that level.
When you say they find commonality, what is that commonality?
They have felt persecuted by the system of American injustice. And it's not a stretch for them to think that Trump may be a victim as well. People see that there's some kind of commonality between himself and maybe all the Black men that have been incarcerated and the families that have been impacted by.
So, wow. That helps explain why Trump is now getting 25% of Black voters under the age of 50. It helps explain why Joe Biden has dropped 20 points with the Black community. Unbelievable.